So I'm on this layer above. I've lowered the opacity so I can see through it. And I'm going to turn Pac-Man on. And I'm going to get real close like this. Using the space bar to bring the hand tool up will allow me to get around the space. So I'm going to just click once. And I'm going to space bar, move down to my next anchor point, and click again. I'm going to move with the space bar, release, and go down here and click again. If I zoom out, you see what happens. It says, well, right now if you were to leave this alone, this is what your path would look like. That line's going to sort of follow me all the way around his head. Next point, I haven't released from this, but if you aren't sure, you can always go back and click on it. You can see that little slash tells me that I'm continuing on the same path. And what I'm going to do is come to about a quarter of the way around his mouth or his head. And I'm clicking and I'm pulling in the direction, and I'm trying to get that line to line up with his, with the curve of his face. Once you get it pretty close, release. And see that line now follows you along. You don't need a lot of anchor points. Like a 90-degree curve is pretty achievable with 2 anchor points. I'm going to click, and again I'm going to pull the direction that I'm traveling. Get that line where I like it, and release. And look what happens. The line is filling in here. Use my hand to come around. Click, drag this direction, the direction that I'm going. Release. I'm going to come back to this last anchor point, and notice that the little icon next to the pen turns to a circle. That tells me that I'm going to finish filling this shape in. It's going to be a filled shape. I'm going to click and drag just a little bit. I don't really need a whole lot. Now in this case, if you're off by a little bit, you can always go back and fix that. I'll show you how now. This is the same both in Illustrator and in Photoshop, by the way. If I grab the direct selection tool, it's white, and the hotkey for it is A. I zoom in, and I click on that last anchor point. If I click on the point on the anchor, this direct selection tool will let me change that curve. Well, you probably noticed that it will only let you change it so much. And if I go and I click on this anchor up here, I can move the anchor into place. And if I turn on the handles, it turns both sides. Think of these Bezier curves as a steering wheel that you can turn one side and not the other sometimes. So what I want to do is I want to bring this one down, but I don't want the one on the other side to go with it. All I got to do is hold down Alt Option, and now I can move that. See how it moves independently? Leave it in place like that. Move the anchor, make a quick adjustment. It doesn't have to be perfect. You only have to do that Alt Option one time. If you do it again, it'll move both handles together. So it activates or deactivates the control of both handles at once. That's how you do it in Photoshop, and what you should get is a vector shape here. Don't forget to turn your opacity layer back. And if you want to change the color in Photoshop, you just click on the little icon in the layer here, and then you can bring up your color picker, color libraries, or just simply pick a color like that. Here's how you do it in Illustrator. More or less the same controls as before. I'm going to lock the layer that I'm working on or working above. The reason is I don't want to affect that layer. I want to affect the layer on top. And Illustrator is a little bit more touchy. This time, when you change the opacity in Illustrator, it's going to be done up here at the top. I'll just select 60. I'm going to select no stroke and make sure my fill color is something that's just different than Pac-Man, just so I can see through it. Type the letter P, and I'm going to come around and do the same as I did with Photoshop. You can see that as I click and drag and pull around, it's going to follow me. Remember, I'm clicking and dragging the direction that I'm traveling. Now say in this example, that's how you do it, and you go back and use the A, which is the direct selection tool. By the way, it's up here. The direct selection will let you change the position here. You can hold down the Alt Option key to just steer one of the handles into place. And if you say, wait a minute, I thought I had made this thing a lower opacity, use the regular selection to select the vector shape, go up to opacity, just change it down again. And then use the selection tool, or sorry, the direct selection tool to make the adjustments. That's how you use the pen tool.